We begin in Texas, where a major blast at a fertilizer plant literally decimated half the town. There are fatalities from this incident, but the exact number of people is currently unknown. Upwards of 160 people have been injured. 3 to 4 firefighters and 1 police officer who responded to the explosion are still missing and being searched for. The blast happened at 8 p.m. Eastern Time in the town of West Texas at the West Fertilizer Company. This is a small farming town with about 2,700 residents. This town is located just about 20 miles north of Waco, Texas. Now, amazingly, last night's blast was actually caught on multiple cameras. So let's take a look at some of those incredible sights and sounds.
Bushes all the way around. Oh yeah, they're probably just I'm sure they're
Authorities were called to the plant more than half an hour before the explosion actually occurred because of a fire in the factory. Evacuations of the surrounding area had already begun, and not a moment too soon, as you just saw. Well, I want to give you some perspective on just how far-reaching this blast really was. It decimated a 5-block radius, toppling between 50 to 75 homes in the process. Take a look at this. The explosion was so powerful that a seismograph in Amarillo, Texas, which is over 400 miles away, detected it. It was so big it registered as a 2.1 magnitude. Earlier, I was joined by RT correspondent Ramon Galindo in West Texas, who filled us in on the aftermath.
Exactly, Megan. Well, what we have here is still several police departments from around Texas cordoning off a large area around the fertilizer plant, which exploded last night at about 7:30 local time. Now, we've been getting briefings periodically from the mayor and from local law enforcement. I just came back from one of the local hospitals, which admitted nearly 100 people who were injured in the explosion last night. Overall, we know that more than 160 people were hurt in the blast. Right now, there have been confirmed fatalities. However, we haven't gotten a new casualty count recently, given the fact that this is still a search and rescue mission. Some of these first responders digging through the rubble this morning, still hoping to find survivors in a neighborhood which has been described as a war zone. The mayor said that it looked like a nuclear bomb had been dropped on his town.
Now, Ramon, I understand that you actually visited one of the hospitals that is hosting a lot of these victims today. Did you have a chance to speak with any of them, and how were they describing the scene?
Right, well, we did speak to one woman earlier who was slightly wounded during the explosion. She lived in the vicinity of the blast. When she saw the smoke, she tried to run towards the senior center, knowing that there was tons of seniors there. Then that's when another blast came and blew her away. She was forced to run away with her children. But this morning when we talked to her, she was so emotionally distraught. Her family was okay, but so many of her friends, she did not know the whereabouts. And we have to remember that this is a town of 2,600 people. Many people here know each other. Many people know a lot of these first responders who are still not accounted for this evening here in Texas. So a lot of anxious and tense moments for the residents here. Despite that, people, not just the police and the fire department, the Waco Police Department came out and told us that it is the civilians that live in this town who should also be considered heroes, who also ran towards the fire in hopes of helping to save some of their neighbors.
And Ramon, as you were just speaking about, it was people in Waco that came, and as I had reported earlier, Waco is quite a distance away. One of the remarkable things about the Boston Marathon bombing is how quickly the victims were able to get medical care, seeing as Boston has some of the best facilities in the country, as well as equipment that was already set up for the runners. Meanwhile, West Texas is 20 miles away from the nearest hospital. So how have authorities responded to this catastrophic incident in helping the victims?
Right, and this is a very small town with only a few ambulances, and some of the people who work in this town for these emergency services were caught up in the blast itself. So hundreds of first responders from throughout Texas were able to show up immediately. A triage was set up last night behind one of the local community centers on the football field and on the baseball field. In the couple of hours that it took us to drive from Austin to here, that triage had been cleared and more than 100 people had been sent to local hospitals. So definitely speaks very highly about the preparedness and the cooperation that we've seen here in Central Texas amongst first responders.
And finally, Ramon, very quickly, any indication on what caused this explosion?
Absolutely not. Right now, an investigation is still underway. The ATF, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, is taking part in the investigation as a criminal investigation. However, they do not want to say that it was an intentional explosion or something was set there intentionally. We have to remember that fertilizer is very volatile and has been used in explosives before, so it is a dangerous plant. But however, the investigation is still underway for the root cause. Meanwhile, police and firefighters are still searching the rubble near the fertilizer plant.
RT correspondent Ramon Galindo working hard for us in West Texas. Thank you, sir.